In this lesson, we're going to learn how to force our viewer to render only specific scan lines either by zooming into the affected area or by using the region of interest. So here's where we left off. I'm just open up 03_begin, and I'm just going to unpause my viewer, and I've just opened up this specular color correct here near the top of our scene. And these tentacles are looking a little bit too dark for me, or for my taste, so I'd like to increase their brightness or gamma them up a little bit so they look better. However, I'd like to see it in context of the entire image or the final composite. So what we can do is we can, of course, come into our specular color corrector and increase the gamma. Now this is, again, a slow scene. It's doing quite a lot of heavy processes and calculations, so we can, of course, turn on our proxy mode. However, if we actually want to see this in its full detail, we can use a variety of ways to limit our viewer to only render specific areas. Now, one of the default ways that we can use, or we can control this, is we can middle click and drag over an area to zoom in, or we can just zoom in on a specific area. Whatever is inside the viewer is the only location that will be updated whenever NUKE re-renders. So if we come in here and we instead change the gamma down, and maybe not so much because the gamma curves is pushing our ultra-wide values a little crazily. And maybe if we turn the contrast down a little bit. Okay, so this is what our tentacles edited look like. But now if we scroll down quickly, we'll be able to see a very big difference between our current view and the pixels below it. And that's because, again, NUKE is rendering this out only when our viewer sees it. So I'm just going to turn off proxy mode here for a second so that we can actually see this change, because with proxy mode on, NUKE renders it a little bit too quickly to even see the difference. So I'm just going to give NUKE a second to spool up and get our render, and then we'll be able to take a look at this again. Okay, so here we are again at full res. And let's zoom in here, and so we can come in, we can of course change various attributes of our color correct, and they will update only in these scan lines. If we zoom back or zoom out, we can see the scan lines of our old preview being stuck inside of our viewer. And I'm just going to jump up here and pause our viewer or hit the P key to freeze it so that we can see this in effect or see this happening. Now this is incredibly useful if we're working in a specific area. However, as soon as we move our camera or move our viewer or zoom out or zoom in, this is going to be forced to re-render. And so this isn't always my favorite solution for finding or limiting the render to a specific area. It's incredibly powerful if we just need to do that, but if we want to see this change in reference or surrounded by the rest of this render, we're going to have to go in and reprocess this render with our current viewer use. So to fix this, NUKE actually has a built-in region of interest, which allows us to completely lock down our scan line or our rendering to only a specific area. So here I just click this button here, and you can also hit Shift-W to turn this on or off. And I've just got it positioned over these two tentacles here. And if we change our color correct, you can see that it only begins re-rendering the area inside of our region of interest. And this is, again, incredibly powerful and useful if we're just modifying a very small part of our render, but we want to see it in context with everything else. So we just give a second for our specular to catch up, and we can see now that only in this area has our render changed. And you can see no matter what we do with the viewer, our render is not going to be reinitiated unless we change something inside of this region of interest. Now, we can modify this by either clicking and dragging in the center point here, the corners, or of course each of the edges we can modify that way. So this is one way we can move our region of interest or set it up initially, but the preferred method is actually using the hotkey Alt-W, and I just hit that and let go, and then left clicking and dragging will draw the new region of interest. Now this is a little bit different than other drawing tools, so again I want to reiterate that. I'm not holding down Alt-W, I'm hitting it, letting go, and then redrawing my region. And so that's just a really nice way to redraw this region of interest as well as enable it if it's off. So if this is turned off, you can hit Alt-W and draw this out, and we have our region of interest on and in the correct location. So now that we have that, we can come in and do maybe a little bit of editing to these to brighten them up and maybe reintroduce some of those values here. You can see that the region of interest is not a silver bullet. We're still going to have to process all of the pixels in this area, but it does limit us and prevent us from processing pixels in areas that we really don't care about. Now this, combined with proxies, forget about it. We're going to be working so quickly, we'll be able to shoot out as many revisions as we want. Because by combining the proxy system and the region of interest system, we can really force NUKE to look at only the exact pixels that we want, so we can really come in and make modifications on the fly and very quickly. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So now we can hit, let's see here. Hit Control P to turn off our proxy, Shift W to turn off our region of interest, and then zoom out to let our scene or our viewer re-render. And as you can see here, with these slower scenes, using the proxy system as well as the region of interest, or both of them combined, allows us to go in, make changes to specific areas or specific nodes, and see them reflected in a small area so that we don't have to wait forever for NUKE to process an entire image if we're only worried about a very small specific area. So again, the hotkeys to control this are Shift W to turn it on and off, and Alt W to change your mouse into a redraw of the region of interest.